Welcome, everybody. It's a great pleasure to share some of the concepts that we're actually using in our Green Balance group. Therapeutic Landscapes is going to be the main topic today. But of course, we are going to start with having a look at the planetary health concept in general, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. And I'm going to give a brief view, why is actually planetary health relevant in the city context, going into some of the things we are doing in our Green Balance group. And then I'm going to focus on the concept, which is the main focus of today, the therapeutic landscapes. So let's get started. So planetary health, I think most of you know it is this concept that describes and assesses the interactions between human health and the environment. And here I always emphasize that the environment here includes both ecosystem and animals, because one of the big critiques of planetary health is that it's too anthropocentric. And I view here with the environment, of course, animals are also included. What we try to do with planetary health is understanding the health effects of the Anthropocene. And I know Anthropocene is somewhat a conflicted concept, but I still like the idea of it. And the Anthropocene, I think most of you know, is essentially the era in Earth history that is characterized by humans. So essentially, we're looking at how humans are influencing the environment and how those environmental changes are reflecting back on our health. The underlying principle is that humanity is dependent on nature. So we need a healthy planet. We need functioning ecosystems in order to have healthy people. Two very essential components of planetary health is the intergenerational and the intragenerational equity. So we're always going to be interested to see, on the one hand side, how do our actions affect the health opportunities of future generations, and at the same time also looking at within our generation, how are health opportunities, our environmental challenges distributed across the globe. And with this, planetary health then drives towards arenas of transformations, that we need to transform the way humanity operates in order to protect planetary health and in turn also protect our own. And this is actually where the anthropocentric critique kind of comes from, because in the end, it's always about human health. And the environmental protection is essentially just a means to an end. Planetary health is an integrated, interdisciplinary concept, and it's also a social movement. This is something I always like to emphasize, that this social movement part of planetary health is also quite important. For us as researchers, as academics, we have to, of course, focus more on the scientific concept of it, but it is important to understand that planetary health is about transformation. And the social movement around this is basically pushing to transform the way we are operating. I'm quite sure that this definition, most of you will have seen in the past. It's the one from Whitney from 2015. I'm not going to read out the details here, but I want to point to the most important elements. Planetary health aims to attain the highest standard of health and well-being and equity, while safeguarding the environmental limits. So environmental limits, we have the concept of planetary boundaries, which was first introduced by Rockstrom et al. In 2009. And I also think here that most of you will have seen this, the 9 boundaries that have been defined. Some of these are considered also potential tipping point. So if we are continuously surpassing those boundaries, there is a severe risk of destabilizing the Earth system. and with that, of course, creating problems for humanity. There was the update in 23 by Richardson et al. This is actually the graphic on the right side, where we can see that there are 6 out of those 9 boundaries are currently already breached. And quite importantly, we can see that this biosphere integrity, where we have biodiversity, is actually one of the boundaries that is surpassed quite severely. Also, the group around Rockström created now this planetary health check, which was done actually last year in 2024. It's a little bit of a different graphic, but essentially it's the same message. In most of those boundaries we are surpassing, and the trends, as you can see in terms of the lines, we are actually in rather moving further beyond the boundary than actually, moving closer to the safe operating space. So this just to give a short recap of what actually we understand with planetary health and planetary boundaries. From here now, I want to highlight why cities are actually important in regard to planetary health. And one of the important elements to understand is that if we have that climate change and climatic differences are strongly affecting urban populations. And one of the most prominent of those is the heat island. Also here, I think that many of you will know what the heat island effect means. It was first described by Luke Howard in the context of London. And the phenomenon essentially describes that in cities, we have higher average temperatures compared to the surrounding area. In the graphic on the right side, we can see the city of Essen here in North Rhine-Westphalia, and quite clearly you can see the city center with the dark colors is much hotter compared to the surrounding areas. The reason is that we have heat storage in buildings, in roads, we have low air exchange, we have heat emissions from cars, from heating, from cooling, from industry, and so on. So essentially, the cities are hot. And with this heat, of course, come health stress and health consequences. In light of climate change, we are expecting to have even higher temperatures, and those higher temperatures in urban areas are going to translate to more problems, higher health burdens. So what is the solution here? And one of the very prominent solutions are urban green spaces, promoting biodiversity, promoting green spaces in urban areas. And this is exactly what we are looking at in our Green Balance research group. This is a junior research group funded by BMBF in the FONA strategy, which is research for sustainability. And in this group, we are looking at the small scale effects of urban biodiversity on health. So we understand that the benefits of green spaces are not uniformly distributed. It's not that every green space has the same effect, but there are differences according to the characteristics: size, location, the urban matrix surrounding the green space, the landscape composition, the connectivity, the biodiversity, and so on. So for this purpose, we selected in Cologne and in Bonn various green spaces, ranging from very small parks to large urban forests, to kind of show those differences. And within each of those areas, we do our assessments. What we're looking at is regulating ecosystem services. So this is what I was just talking about earlier in regard to heat, in regard to noise, in regard to air quality. But we're also looking at cultural ecosystem services. So how do these green spaces affect the mental health? And here, the kind of usage intention, the perception of the biodiversity, the soundscape, they are actually affecting this restorative potential of the green spaces. And lastly, we're also having one PhD student looking at health risks, particularly tick-borne diseases. So looking at urban biodiversity, forming habitats for vectors in urban areas. In order to study this, we have various concepts that we're using. First of all, of course, planetary health is our foundational concept, which I already introduced. We're also looking at urban health, but one core concept is also therapeutic landscapes. And this idea of therapeutic landscape is what I want to get into in a bit more detail today with you. The concept of therapeutic landscapes was first introduced by the US geographer Wilbert Geisler in 1992, and he described it as a metaphor for aiding in the understanding of how the healing process works itself out in places, settings, milieus. So it is kind of a way of studying how places act on health. Initially, he had a focus very much on extraordinary places. So he looked at places of pilgrimage, hot springs, groves. So places that are kind of special and have a healing potential that's already very much embedded in it. And he looked at how those places act on human health. And what he realized is that it is not just the physical properties of those places, but it is also the social structures, the perceptions, the spirituality that's connected to those places that actually create the health benefits. It was then quite quickly, and you can see this in this picture here, extended to not just these extraordinary places, but to natural landscapes. And if we look at a landscape like this, you can imagine that here you can relax, you can recuperate. And depending on where you are, you might have cleaner air, you might have less noise. And with this, the health benefits can unfold. Further, the researchers took this concept of therapeutic landscapes and extended it to everyday spaces. So essentially, a therapeutic landscape can be any type of place. It doesn't even have to be a natural place. It could be any kind of place. And one of the most, I would say, extreme examples is the football stadium. So if you're a big football fan and you have your space where you sit every Friday for your soccer game, this can be a therapeutic place for you. You have a place of belonging. You have a place of unity. And there you can really recuperate the stress of your week. But this is not what I want to talk about today, but I want to show how we apply it to the urban context. So in urban green spaces, we can see that mental and physical health benefits are present. There's various studies that show when people spend time in urban green spaces, people that are living in closer proximity to urban green spaces, and people who have maybe green window views, they have better health outcomes than people who do not have this. A key theory from Kaplan and Kaplan is the attention restoration theory. And the attention restoration theory defines 4 points that need to be present in a landscape for it to become restorative or health promoting. The first one is fascination. So a place needs to spark fascination in the people. We need to feel that we can absorb the place. It needs to give a certain degree of extent, so that we have wide views, that we can let our mind wander around. It needs to give a sense of being away, that you escape from your everyday routines and that you come into a place, which is away from your normal everyday stressors. And lastly, it needs to be compatible. It needs to be compatible with what you are expecting. It needs to be compatible with what you desire. And when those elements are essentially there, then a landscape can form therapeutic and health promoting benefits. So the therapeutic landscape concept essentially explores why certain environments contribute to a healing sense of place. The definition of Gesler is that therapeutic landscapes are places where the physical and built environment, the social conditions, and the human perceptions combine to produce an atmosphere in which is conducive to healing. So essentially, we need an understanding of the physical and the social properties of a given place. And it is in the combination of those that the therapeutic potential unfolds. So what it indicates, and this is something which we also really emphasize in our research group, is that the health effects of a green space are mediated by subjective individual factors and perceptions. So if you have, and I'm going to get into this in a moment a little bit further, this idea of sense of place. I have it in the sense of place. It's kind of a multidimensional construct which is used in geography to understand the relationship between people and their spatial setting. And this is what this individual element is. It's kind of like a place attachment, a place identity, and a place dependence. If you have a certain relationship to a space because of maybe childhood memories, because of certain experiences that you have, this place is going to act differently upon you than people who do not share those memories. In the therapeutic landscape concept, this effect, this health-promoting therapeutic effect, emerges through this interaction between the physical property of the place, which you can measure in terms of air quality, in terms of noise, in terms of the heat reduction, and so on. The social environment, so this is the sense of belonging, it's the sense of security, and your individual perceptions and expectations. Do you view a place as beautiful? Do you view this place as safe? Do you view this place as pleasant? And the expectation you have. If you go to a certain green space to relax, you might want to read a book on a bench, but there is a lot of noise, there's people playing, there's barbecues, there is music, then this place doesn't really match with your expectation. So of course, then the healing potential of this place cannot truly unfold. But if you go to that same place with the intention of social interaction to engage with your friends, then this place is very conducive to this relaxation. So it's different places in different circumstances can be therapeutic or not therapeutic. So in order to assess the therapeutic landscapes, we need to look at different perspectives. Essentially, those different layers of the therapeutic landscape. The first one is the human ecological perspective. So the relationship between the human and the environment. Here, mostly those physical factors are relevant. Now, if we have a place which has very poor air quality, very high noise, then regardless how you feel about this place, there's always going to be some kind of negative effect. One very interesting example here from one study is the kind of smoking corners as therapeutic landscapes, which I found very fascinating because many smokers actually indicate that going to these smoking corners, these are actually their therapeutic space. This is where they have their social interaction. This is where they relax. But at the same time, from the physical point of view, of course, they're smoking. So there is a negative health effect. So there is always going to be this relationship between the physical property and their own perception. This kind of now moves, this example moves into the second sphere, which is the humanistic perspective. So this is looking at the subjective meaning, the symbolism, the spirituality of places. So if a place has a certain meaning, then it can unfold therapeutic potentials. A great example for everybody who's living in the Rhineland is, of course, the Rhine itself. So even though it might sometimes be a little bit noisy when ships are going by, it might be a little bit polluted. In the end, sitting by the Rhine is always going to have this symbolism of being at home. And with this creates a sense of belonging, of being home, being part of the social fabric, and with this potentially unfolding some health promoting properties. Then we come to the kind of structuralist perspective, and also here the social construction of the landscape is important, kind of connecting to this idea that I just mentioned with the Rhineland. So it's about how society actually forms the place, how it is constructed. And here, being, for example, in Cologne, seeing the Cologne Dome, this is actually something which has this very social construction of being the symbol of the place, and with this creating the sense of belonging. And then we also have the post-structuralist perspective, which is essentially this discursive construction of knowledge, experience, and memory. So also there, bringing in a bit of this individual focus of how a place is actually constructed in our mind by the way we are thinking about it, the way we have experienced it. So a place that we have visited over and over, we develop a relationship with the place. And through this relationship, the place becomes more or less therapeutic, depending on the type of memories we have made. So importantly here is that there are some places that may be universally considered therapeutic, mostly because of the physical environmental factors. But there are also other places that are only therapeutic through the kind of sense of place, this idea of place identity of a specific individual or group. The example of the soccer stadium that I mentioned earlier, not everybody sitting in that space is going to experience it as a therapeutic place. But if you are a diehard fan of this club and you're in the middle of your community, then of course, this place is the place where you want to be. This is where you can let all your stress out. Now, so it's going to be always a little bit dependent on the individual's own perception and understanding. So with this, I want to now kind of translate this idea of therapeutic landscape. Why is this even relevant in the context of planetary health? Importantly, when we're thinking about the transformation that is necessary for planetary health, we need a positive human-environment relationship. And with therapeutic landscapes, we see how the individual relationship with landscapes shapes the health potential of this place. So this idea of place identity, which is the connection to a place, can drive the motivation to protect that particular place. For example, the Grünzug Nord in the north of Bonn, where there is a lot of ideas of construction and basically taking this away. There's a social movement to protect this space. And this motivation to protect comes out of an identity that is connected to that place. So what I am propagating is by building up place identity with natural spaces, we can promote the protection of nature and these kind of environments. And by studying the therapeutic landscape concept, we can better understand what elements do we need to build those place identities. So when we are promoting place identity, we can support planetary health transformation. What characteristics contribute to place identity? And here I just have a couple of examples. Aesthetically pleasing spaces that look beautiful, places that portray a sense of safety and belonging, those are places that promote the development of place identity. Very importantly, though, there's individual and cultural differences. And here I want to especially highlight in terms of aesthetically pleasing places. While we here in Germany might view nature-like green space as a very aesthetically pleasing place, in other cultures, this may not be having a very positive connotation. So in order to build place identity, we also need to understand the cultural and individual differences in the preferences. What are elements that are promoting an idea of safety, of belonging? Well, if we have very natural-like, forest-like structure, we might feel some insecurities because there might be people hiding in the bushes around the corner. And this can create then a sense of insecurity, and with that, of course, negate some of the positive effects. So only when there is this idea of safety and belonging can we really appreciate this. On the other hand side, it is also important to understand that when we have environmental change, particularly climatic differences, changes, then this is also going to have adverse impact on the health effects of therapeutic landscape. One example here is climate change on green spaces. This is the inner green belt in Cologne in 2023. For me personally, a place that I really enjoy to go to. But here we can see it's no longer green in this drought of 2023. And of course, this then reduces the therapeutic value of a place like this. Plastic waste contamination. If you're going to a place and you have lots of waste, this does not give you a sense of safety, of comfort, and it's definitely not aesthetically pleasing. And lastly, dried riverbeds or water bodies. Here, an example of Ahmedabad in India, where essentially the river has completely disappeared due to a drought, giving a completely different image. Standing here at this temple, looking over a water body is, of course, much more health promoting and therapeutic than looking over this dried up riverbed. So with this, I come to my conclusions. I want to highlight that planetary health transformations are essential. We need to make this planetary health transformation. And with this, I want to support the social movement around this. we need to build positive human-environment relationships in order to promote or increase the motivation to protect the environment. Therapeutic landscapes, those are spaces that have health-promoting properties, and it comes in a combination of physical, social, and individual factors. And these therapeutic landscape then can contribute to developing an individual bond with the place, building a place identity. Here we have a kind of bidirectional relationship. On the one hand, place identity contributes to the therapeutic effect. On the other hand side, the therapeutic effect and the beauty of a place also increases the place identity. And as I said before, this place identity is what influences the motivation to protect spaces and landscapes. So essentially, by applying the therapeutic landscape concept and understanding what are the elements that are driving place identity and so on, we can utilize these understandings for the planetary health transformation. And with this, I see a clear connection that the therapeutic landscape concept is valuable within the planetary health ideas. With this, I want to thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to your questions and comments. And thank you very much.